Hey everyone, in this episode, Nicole Dennis shares her journey of starting a side hustle in wedding photography while working full time in healthcare. She talks about challenges that she faced and the strategies that she used to build her portfolio and book weddings. Nicole emphasizes the importance of getting started even when you don't have everything figured out. And this is something that I definitely agree with and encourage people to do. The value of continuous learning and practice, very important too in this journey. She also provides insight on balancing multiple roles and setting expectations with clients to ensure a successful photography experience. I hope you enjoy. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast. Today I have with me Nicole Dennis. I'm so excited to talk to her. She has some amazing tips for you guys. And we're going to be talking about something that I am very passionate about too. So I'm excited for this conversation. So Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at and what do you do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So I am actually in my 10th year of wedding photography, which seems crazy to me that it's 10 years now. So I'm in Prince Edward Island in Canada, so a very small province in Canada. I'm a wife, a mom of 3 littles under the age of 6, so it's pretty hectic around here. I'm currently on maternity leave, so I go back in September. Normally, I work at a cancer treatment center as a radiation therapist full-time and then do my photography as a side hustle. And then just over my last couple of maternity leaves, I got into like the education space as well because I don't know how to sit still. So that's what I did. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about how did you start and why did you start your side hustle, your own business, given that you have a pretty good, steady job in healthcare?
Yeah. Well, funny thing, the way that the exams worked for my radiation career was you wrote an exam in May and then it would take a few months to get our results back. So I decided that I wanted to go traveling in that time. And so I was like, well, I need to get a good camera because I was going to travel throughout Africa and Europe. So I was like, I need to be able to get some epic pictures. So I went and purchased my first DSLR camera and kind of threw it on automatic mode and just went, had no idea how to use it. And then whenever I got back, there still wasn't any jobs for me. I was only able to get like pick up casual shifts and whatnot. So I was back living with my parents and had so much time on my hands because I had no work. I had to start paying back my student loans. And one of my friends said to me, "You've always wanted to do photography. Like, why don't you just start learning now? Like, you literally have all the time." So I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I read like all the books, binged all the YouTube videos, read all the blogs, and basically just started asking all my friends and family if I could take their picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like how it started. So that was the end of 2013. And then all of 2014, like into the spring, I was kind of doing all those free sessions. And then spring into summer, fall of that year, I started charging a little bit and posting on Facebook and whatnot. And then this next part, I just kind of like, I remember it so vividly because I feel like it's like the pivotal moment for me. A friend texted me and she was like, this guy that did wedding photography where we're from was looking for an assistant for an engagement session. She's like, you should contact him. And I'm like, that's terrifying. I'm like, I'll never get chosen. There's probably a lineup of people. Anyway, I ended up doing this engagement session with him and we kind of like hit it off like personality wise together. And so he asked if I wanted to assist him in his last 3 weddings of that year. So I jumped on it. I mean, like, I didn't take any photos. I was just holding bags and lights and whatnot. But like those three weddings, I learned so much. And so basically from like mid 2014 until, I don't know, winter of 2015, I ended up booking 10 weddings for the summer of 2015, having never photographed a wedding before. And so that's kind of like how it all started. And now here I am, like 10 years later, still photographing weddings and like still loving it.
Still killing it.
Yeah, loving it.
I love it. So I
Yeah.
always thought that, you talked about, oh, I was just carrying bags and holding things. I wasn't really shooting, but I feel like not having a camera right away when you're learning those first 2 to 3 times, you're gonna go observe what a wedding is all about and how things work. Not having to worry about your camera and taking pictures actually helps you to pay more attention, to
Yeah.
be more environmentally aware of what's happening and what do I need to be preparing for. So I feel like that's definitely the way to go. I wish I have had the opportunity to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and do just some like assisting first to kind of understand the logistics of what a photographer needs, what the photographer needs to be aware of, and what they need to be planning for. And then once you've mastered your camera and you don't have to be thinking about your settings and how to capture
Hmm.
things, then you start second shooting, and then you progress into lead shooting, which should be
Yeah.
how the natural progression of things work. But I feel like it rarely works like that for us.
I know. And where we're from, there's not many people hire a second shooter.
Mm.
There's normally just one. And so it's more like the high end luxury weddings where we're from that do second shooters, and they usually come from out of province. So there wasn't really that, like you see in the Facebook groups of like, okay, you got to go second shoot, but there was nothing like that. It's more like you be their assistant and you just watch them all day. So then it's like, where am I going to get all those pictures to try to make myself look like a wedding photographer when
Yeah,
I wasn't?
that's so interesting how different it is everywhere. So over here,
I know.
and I'm in Florida, in
Yeah.
the US, and it's is the common, like I would probably shoot 1, 2, 3 weddings maybe by myself the whole year out of a good like 40 to 50. So
Yeah.
it's just a norm to have people want that second photograph. That's one of their big demands, is like, I want a certain amount of coverage and I want that second photographer, which I'm grateful for. I'm more than happy to have a partner there. I think that for all kinds of reasons, I tell people all the time,
Hmm.
from a safety standpoint, if something happens with my equipment or me, maybe I'm not feeling good. Something happened, and I can perform. Like, I have that second person in there as a insurance that pictures are going to be taken no matter what, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to capture all that getting ready, I don't know if that's how it happens there, but like, one person is in one place and the other person is in the other place, and you can be running back and forth like a.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do. And it's,
Yep.
when you have to do it, it's what you do. But
Yep.
yeah, it would be a lot easier if we had a second one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
for sure. Hmm.
So, tell us a little bit more about. So, you still have your full time job, and
Hmm.
even though you've been doing this for 10 years, you still do it as something that you do on the side. So, tell us about the thought process of this being a second profession for you and not being your main.
It's funny. People asked me, like, just over the years, like, oh, are you ever going to do this full time? And it was never my intention to ever go full time. And I still don't ever want to. And I think if I had to rely on it to be my full income, I don't think it would be as fun for me anymore. And kind of like the way I look at it, so I'm not sure if people kind of know what a radiation therapist is, but it's basically if anyone is going through radiation treatment as part of their like cancer care, I'm the person that administers the radiation with the big machine. And so I just find like every single day I'm with cancer patients, 9 times out of 10, it's lovely and it's not doom and gloom, but you do get some doom and gloom. So sometimes I'll see someone like on their worst day, and then I love to kind of counteract that with photography, where I get to see people on their best day. And it's just kind of this like, I don't know, it's just such a nice balance for me, I think, that I think the reason I still love it after 10 years is because it's like, I don't know, I call it my fun money, where it's like, because it's a side hustle, it's like, I was able to travel. I was able to do things that I normally wouldn't have been able to do had I just been on that one, not one income, because I'm married and we do have two incomes, but, it's just kind of that extra, like I said, fun money.
That's good. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely not my goal to be a full-time
Yeah.
photographer. I was in healthcare before too, and had a
Yeah.
what people would call a pretty steady, good job.
Yeah.
Sometimes we end up accidentally becoming CEOs, which is what podcast
Right.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's awesome. So how did you get to book all those weddings without ever having one booked? Let's talk about that.
I know. I was trying to like think of that, and one thing, and a lot of people kind of know this as like a characteristic of mine, is like I set goals. I'm a goal setter, and I usually hit them, whether it's like in the time frame that I want or not. But that's something like I kind of made a goal for myself, and I said I want to start shooting weddings. So if someone asked, I said yes, whether I was ready or not. I made sure that I was ready come the day. But that was one thing. And the other thing was I was at the age of a lot of people getting married. So I knew a lot of people. And just like I was into sports growing up. So I knew a lot of people from sporting, like all these different sports that I played. I played a lot of them competitively. So I knew, like, I worked at bars. So I ended up just like knowing a lot of people. And I think that really helped because, when you think of people, the know, like, and trust factor, a lot of people knew who I was just from it being a small town. They, whether they were a friend of mine or an acquaintance, they knew they liked me because whether their friend liked me or whatever. And then they felt like they could trust me because they already knew who I was. And then they found out that it was only $1,000, and so that was a no-brainer for them. So I think just like a combination of all those things. And I was posting online photos of like family sessions, and I did some giveaways of couples and things like that, and they they were like decent. So that I think they all those things combined, they kind of took a leap of faith with me.
That's cool. Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about that we wanted to go over today is just that concept of getting started even when you don't have
Hmm.
everything ready to go, right? So we feel like a lot
Yeah.
of times people just wait until everything is perfect and they have everything and they just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and things just never get started, right? So I think both you and I are big proponents of just get it going, get it
Just go. It's never going to be perfect. Like, again, 10 years in, I'm still not perfect. I'm still learning. Every single year I still take education on multiple different things of whatever I decide that year, but it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have all the gear. You're never going to know everything. So, and it's the experiences that you learn from the most, I think, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Yeah.
I think once the ball is rolling, once things get started, and there's a higher sense of urgency to solve any problems that kind of come your way, right? So if you
Yeah.
keep trying to solve all the problems before you start, first of all, you're never going to know where they are because you're
Hmm.
not in the thick of it. Things are not happening. And second, there's not a sense of urgency because you're like, well, I'll figure that out when I have to. But when
Yeah.
you get started and the ball is rolling, whenever there's an obstacle, the sense of urgency to go through that or to
Yeah.
manage that obstacle is a lot higher. So I am big, again, big proponent of just get things going, just get it started.
Yeah. And it's so true because like I just remember that first year going in and I had taken a workshop in I think it was like May, and my first wedding was in June. So I learned a lot in that workshop, but not enough for all of my weddings. And I just remember so many times that it was like things that didn't need to have gone wrong, but they did because I didn't know my gear well enough. And those were mostly the things,
Mhm.
not knowing my gear well enough. Like, I feel like if I were to tell someone starting out, but they were maybe a bit scared too, like, dive in, but just make sure you know your gear.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple times like it didn't work, but it's not that it didn't work. I just didn't know how to do it properly.
Yeah.
So I just remember like the anxiety at that time being like, oh my God, it's broke. But like, no, it wasn't. I did figure it out, but you know, I could have figured it out before it happened.
Yeah, yeah. I teach in another group. We teach beginner photographers, and that's one of the things that we are always driving into their heads. It's like, no, you have your basic skills like done, mastered. Like, know how to master your camera, know how to the point where you don't have to be thinking about it anymore. So I can be
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the people in front of me and the situations in front of me, and my fingers are just going and I'm adjusting, and as I, because my brain understands that so well because I've done it so many times that I don't have to think about it. So that's a big thing, I think, for people to feel more confident. I think all the other things are a lot of things you can figure it out on the go, but I agree when it comes to your equipment, very much so has to be something that you can master because you're going to be put into situations that you don't know. Like, it's going to be a tiny, dark room where you have to figure out how to get pictures. It's going to be a situation where you can't set your equipment the way that you like. So, having a good knowledge of your equipment is going to make a huge difference in how comfortable you feel on those situations that where you have to figure it out on the go.
Yeah. And people hate that. Like, I also have a like beginner photography program, and that's the part like you just have to practice and practice and practice, and like it's not sexy. Do you know what I mean? Like, going and doing the other things, like posing people, like that's fun, but like just constantly going to take photos in different lighting situations is, it's not exciting. So people are like, yeah, I think I know it. I think I would be okay. And then they get there and I'm like, well, you just have to keep going.
What are some of the reasons that you see people using as a reason not to get started?
Well, I find a lot of them, it's just like they're scared. So, like, scared they're going to miss a key moment because there's no do overs. I've heard people being scared of bridezillas, which I kind of find a little bit funny. They're just scared because they've never done it before, or they don't have a portfolio. It's another one, or just like they're an anxious person in general, so they think that they can't overcome it. Is probably
Yeah.
the biggest ones that I hear.
What are some of the recommendations you have given to people to kind of overcome those obstacles?
So for the people that say to me like, "Well, I've never done one before," and I just kind of always say, I'm like, "Well, I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to walk." Right? Like, you have to practice, you have to learn, and you have to just do it. And there's a quote by Stephen Covey, and he says, to achieve goals that you've never achieved before, you have to do things that you've never done before. And like, I really live by that. So yeah, I just kind of tell them that you just have to start and do one. There's no kind of way to get around it. And then, like, the people that would say to me, like, I don't have a portfolio, no one's going to book me for a wedding when they see I don't have any wedding photos. And so I tell them, I'm like, well, go build a portfolio. And, and then they'll ask me, well, how? And so I always tell them, like, host giveaways, do model calls, do a styled shoot. When I was first doing that, the 10 weddings before that, I I didn't even know what a styled shoot was, but I was creating a mock wedding, and just to make sure that I knew how to do everything before I had that first wedding.
Yeah.
And I remember that workshop I was at, and I had told them I had 10 weddings, and they were like, "And you've never done a wedding before?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "But I'm setting up this like mock wedding." And I was just like, I laugh now, but this girl like whispered to me after, and she was like, "They're actually called styled shoots." I'm like, "Oh, I was like, "That's a thing?" And she was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, so that's how new I am." But that's kind of like how I started my portfolio is just,
Mhm.
or I tell them like, "Do you know anyone that recently got married? Ask them to go dress up, take some more photos for them." And then it's kind of, I find like the bridezilla one and the like scared of missing key moments kind of go hand in hand, because I just find like the more prepared you are for the entire day, the more like in tune you can be with what's happening in front of you so that you are prepared for all those moments. And then I also think of like a bridezilla. If you're sending out questionnaires and you go over the timeline with them and make sure that there's ample time for everything, and you've kind of like thought of everything you can think of that could come up and have a plan for that, there's like nothing for them to come at you for. Like in 10 years, I've actually never dealt with a bridezilla. There's been a couple people who are like, super uber focused on one aspect of the day or the other, but like they were never upset or rude or anything like that. So I kind of just tell them like, one, you're not going to attract bridezillas if you're kind of showing yourself on social media, because you're going to attract the people that like your personality. And then if you're just prepared for everything, then you're not going to have to deal with backlash of something.
Yeah, setting up the expectation make a huge difference
Yeah,
for people understand
huge.
what they're gonna get and how it's gonna happen and how they need to prepare to better help you accomplish that end goal. Huge difference when it comes to clients not being satisfied. I feel like a lot of times that comes from the lack of understanding. Um, and
Yes, of what that expectation is of them, of you, and yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
Making sure that you're proactive, explaining things and helping them understand what's going to happen on the wedding day, what's going to happen after the wedding day, and how you do things makes a huge difference to prevent a lot of that for sure. Today's episode is sponsored by PhotoBiz Education. Are you tired of empty calendars? Or worse, feeling like your revenue is capped? I've been there. The truth is, it's insanely frustrating to feel like you're doing everything the experts recommend but never seeing real results for yourself. Stop trying to follow someone else's path. Your business superpowers are completely unique from every other photographer in your area. Let me help you find the key to unlocking your wildly profitable business strategy. Check out our services and resources at photobizeducation.com. That's photobizeducation.com.
Yeah, and then the anxiety part, I just always like to use myself as an example. And I'm very open about this, but like I'm medicated for anxiety and depression and things, and but I wasn't when I started my business. And I didn't even realize that all of the feelings and like the tightness in my chest, like I didn't know those had words for how I felt. And coming from this very small town, I moved 19 hours away to a big city to go to university. And then I traveled through Europe by myself. And Africa, I was with my friend, but then I came home. Then I started this business of like, very unsure and very unclear of certain things. But I like to tell people that because I mean, now I am medicated, so it's a lot easier. But I wasn't then. And if you really want something, like you can push through and you can figure out ways to deal with it. And I think that's just, again, maybe people are just too scared and they don't know the tools to get them through,
Mhm.
but they could definitely figure it out for sure.
Yeah, I think again, a lot of the anxiety comes from the lack of control and not knowing what's coming. So the
Yeah.
more you can prepare for it, the same way you prepare your clients, help them understand what's going to happen. So the more you can have that practice ahead of time, understand the steps of the wedding, what is expected of you, and the more you're going to feel comfortable with the situation. Obviously, I'm sure medication helps too, but I
Yeah.
feel like understanding the environment and being prepared for
Hmm.
makes a huge difference too.
Yeah, definitely.
Where did you go in Africa?
I started in South Africa, then I went to Zambia and Zimbabwe, and then I went up to Malawi and Tanzania and Kenya and Egypt.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
just traveling, getting to see places, or were you doing something
Yeah.
specific?
No, just traveling. Yeah, I met a friend in radiation school, and he used to live there, and then he also traveled through there, and I actually saw pictures that he took while he was on that trip, and it just like I wouldn't say many things like call me to do things. Do you know what I mean? Like that doesn't happen to me often, but I was like, I need to do this.
Need to go.
Yeah, I remember calling my mom, and I was like, Mom, I'm going to go to Africa. And she cackled in the phone laughing because, like, before then, I literally couldn't stay away from home without, like, having a panic attack. So she's like, okay, dear.
Sure.
Like, yep, you call me when you go. And I did. So I was very happy with myself that I didn't let it hold me back.
Again, it just I guess it speaks to the mindset of a little bit of adventure, being okay with not knowing 100% what's going to happen,
Yeah.
not letting that get in the way of what you want to do. Tell us about that first wedding. How did that go? Any specific memory?
Well, yeah, the thing that was hard was I think I knew everyone in the wedding. It was one of my high school friends. He was getting married, and the girl he was marrying, I had worked with before. And I just remember them being like, throughout the day, being like, Nicole, you're doing really good. So clearly, I was bringing out this energy of like, I'm very anxious.
Did you experience?
Um, yeah. But like to be honest, everything went really well for that wedding. Like it was, of course, it was like threatening rain all day long. But when I look back at the pictures, I'm like, it was great. It was overcast, which like I would actually rather threatening rain all day than a bright sky. Yeah, so like nothing really went wrong. It was just I remember like just sweating because I was so anxious that I was gonna like forget something but I didn't. It was all fine. Yeah, I can just like feel that
Good.
feeling.
The great memories of our first wedding.
Yeah.
I think what I struggle with in the beginning was having I couldn't find I couldn't find anybody to second shoot for. Like nobody would,
Mm,
even though it's a very common thing here, nobody would say yes to let me second shoot for them, which at the time, obviously, it frustrates you. Now, as a business owner, 100% understand that.
yeah.
People ask me all the time now to second shoot, and I'm like, I want to help you, but you're also like, it's my business name on the line. I don't know
Hmm.
you. I don't know your skills. I don't know how you behave. And to me, that's very important. How someone presents themselves on the wedding day. To me, that's very important, especially for my brand. So it's hard. It's hard to say yes to somebody who has never done it before. So 100% understand all those people that said no to me. And my solution was to watch as many trainings as I could of being on a wedding, being almost like those courses that take you, through the wedding with them, like you're shooting with them
Yeah.
in a situation.
Yeah.
So I could do my best to understand the dynamics of what I needed. and prepared. And I shot many weddings by myself as a lead shooter before I did my second shooting, my ever first second job. So it was just an interesting, like backwards kind of dynamic of learning. But again, having to just put yourself out there and make yourself beautiful and be honest and vulnerable and say, hey, I'm learning. I want to learn and teach me if I'm doing something wrong, or can I be asking you questions during this process of me teaching? Because some people
Yeah.
bring you along. I mean, will bring you along and just literally all you're going to be doing is holding things and handing things, and they're not going to be doing any teaching. So make sure that you are upfront, letting them know that you want to be learning, you want to be asking
Hmm.
questions. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it all goes back to that like expectations thing that we were talking about earlier of like, if you kind of lay out what you're looking for, then that's what you'll receive.
yeah. What are some of the things that you feel like in your teaching aspect of your job that you feel like people need help with the most in the beginning?
I think honestly, like overcoming those fears, like mindset stuff for sure. Of like, even I was on a call last week, so we do like a weekly group coaching with my program, and one of the things we were talking about were family formals, and they were like, that just like terrifies me, and I'm like, but it shouldn't. Like, if you want, you can have a list on a physical piece of paper. And you can have somebody, whether it's you or if you do have an assistant or something, checking off each time you go through a different combination. And I'm like, no one is going to, one, care or know if it's normal or not normal to say, like, okay, before I kind of let you guys disperse, I just want to make sure that I got everything that you wanted. They're going to be appreciative of that, instead of if you don't get one of the combinations they specifically asked for,
Yeah.
and then you let everyone leave just because you didn't, you let your pride get in the way. Like, no one cares about that. Like, you don't, being professional at a wedding isn't like memorizing. It's kind of the same thing if you go to a restaurant, you're in a big group and the waitress or waiter memorizes everything and like thinks we should be impressed, but really all the dishes are incorrect.
Came out wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, like just write it down. So it's kind of the same thing when it comes to like the family formals, that kind of same thing. And it's again, everything that they talk about is all mindset. And I'm like, I think I'm going to have to hire someone to come in and do some mindset calls,
Ooh, I love
because
that. Call me up, girl.
because I yeah, because I think that's the biggest thing in that imposter syndrome of like, well, I can't charge that because I know that girl and she's better than me and she charges that. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know the back end of her business, or you don't, like,
Yeah.
so definitely mindset.
Yeah. Absolutely. Same thing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have kids, so let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about managing kids and your business and, juggling all those.
Yes. All the things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say lucked out. I mean, I chose him as my husband, but he is phenomenal. Like, if I had a different partner, it might not have worked out how it has so far. Like, he cooks, he mostly cleans. I do a little bit, not much. All of my kids are like mama's kids, like mama's boys, and then I have a little girl now, but they always want me. So I kind of do all the things with them, and then he kind of does the back, like the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry, and he's the housewife. um, and so it really works in that sense. Right now, on maternity leave, just when I put my daughter down for a nap, that's when I try and like get as much done as I can. When I'm back at work, I usually just use my 30-minute lunch hour to answer emails and prep blog posts, or like figure out what I'm going to do content wise, like planning out my content. I use those like 30 minutes a day to do that. And then if I need to do more things, then I do it after the kids go to bed. But I'm not one to like sit and watch TV. Like, I actually don't know how. I
Oh,
should
I'm
probably be working on that.
somebody else like me. I'm so
You
happy
too?
I'm not the only one.
Like I can't. So I if I'm watching TV, I'm always doing something else. So it's yeah, my laptop is always with me and I'm always working. So I wouldn't say I do a very good balance. And like I have to plan a date night with my husband, and we probably don't do it as often as we should. That's actually like one of the things I'm trying to work on this year,
Yeah.
just because it's hard to juggle everything. We'll kind of see when I go back to work. Having 3 kids now might be a bit more of a juggle, but I'm also not taking as many weddings
Yeah.
anymore, just because it's too hard. Like with the job that my husband has, summers are the busiest for him,
Mhm.
and he's shift work in the summertime. So luckily we have a great support system. Like we both still have our parents, so they can help us out whenever we need them, which is so great. But yeah, it's just kind of a get things done when we can get them done
Yeah, there you go.
type thing. Yeah.
How many weddings do you take a year now?
Usually anywhere between 6 and 10, depending. Because where I am, it's usually like mid June to late June to mid October. That's it. You might get like I don't do winter weddings. I did a couple, but I just find it's so hard because the sun sets at 4.
Yeah.
Whenever you try to educate people on that, they're like, well, then I'm going to have to get ready at 6 a.m. and have our wedding ceremony at noon. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm telling you all of this. So I just don't do it anymore because it's not fun for me.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
What made you get into teaching?
I just found like I've taken like thousands of dollars worth of education. And what I was thinking, I don't even know why I was thinking this one day, but it was kind of like I had to take a posing course and then a lighting course and a marketing course and a business course and like all of the different things. There was no like A to Z become a wedding photographer course. And that's what kind of started it for me was I wanted to be able to do an all-in-one, like really big, robust course so that people didn't have to go and like find all the different people who put on the courses for all the different things. That's kind of where it started, or where it went. Where it started was just that beginner's course that I put on, and it's all just like photography basics and camera settings. And that all just came because so many people were asking me to help them with their camera that I was like, I think there might be a need for this. So yeah, I made that, and that was my second maternity leave that I did that. And then when I was doing that, I thought of this other one that I just did this maternity leave.
Perfect. So how long ago did you start teaching?
2 years ago.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. And with the beginner's course, it's just like a at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have to do any of the teachings now that it's up there. Whereas the robust course, like once a week, I like meet with the group of them and take questions and stuff. So it's more like more hands on for that one.
And how long is that course?
That one's a 12-week program. And then there's the option to, I wouldn't call it a membership. It's just like an option to stay on monthly so that they can kind of still come to those weekly group coaching calls.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We had a lot of great tips and things for people to apply right away, which I always love. I like tangible things that can be
Yes.
actionable
Yeah.
for people to follow up on. So I appreciate you sharing all of that with us. Tell us where can people find you?
I'm at Nicole and Photo everywhere. And I actually made a little freebie for everyone who of your audience for kind of that thing we were talking about earlier about how do I build a portfolio? Like, how do I market myself as a wedding photographer if I've never shot a wedding before? So I create a little freebie for your listeners if they're interested. It's just at education.nicoleann.ca/CEO.
Perfect. We're gonna put it on the show notes for you guys too.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys for listening to us today, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.